Welcome to Toastmasters Club 5880, Toast to the Best, Teen Speaking. Professional speech building skills and more for teens. Learn about job interview techniques, choosing and presenting your senior project, conquering your fear of public speaking, why listening is an art form, and why developing good communication skills are essential to succeed in life. Get on the road to success on this free program presented by Toastmasters Club 5880.
I'd like to share a story about my first full-time job interview. I had a lot of part-time jobs when I was younger. My first job was at a gas station. And then my second job was at the Burger King down the street. That was before I became a vegetarian. And then I worked at a hardware store like 84 Lumber, Ollie's. Those are some older brands. And then Sport Mart was a part-time job. That was probably my favorite. When I was 20 years old, I answered an ad for a full-time draftsman for a local manufacturing company. And I sent in my resume, and I got a call for an interview. So I went down, and I interviewed with the engineering manager, and he asked me some questions, and I asked him some questions, and I showed him my portfolio that I'd put together from high school. And the interview was going well, and then toward the end of the interview, he asked me, "Scott, do you have any more questions for me?" I said, "No, I'm good." And then a little more small talk, and then he asked me again, "Scott, is there anything else you want to ask me?" I said, "No, I'm fine." And then a little more small talk, and then again he asked me, "Are you sure there's nothing else you want to ask me?" I said, I'm thinking, what am I missing here? You know, like, am I blowing this interview or what? So I said, "No, I'm fine. I got everything I need to know." So we wrapped up the interview. I went home, and then a week later, I got a phone call, and it told me that I got the job. So I started working, and it was a great job. I really enjoyed drafting. It was mechanical style drafting. And then 6 months into the job, I got a review, my first job review. And it was favorable. He enjoyed my work. He was happy with me being there. And he said, "Scott, do you know why I hired you?" And I thought, because I was the most qualified. And he said, "No." He said there were 3 other candidates that were at least as qualified. Maybe one of them was even better. And I said, "Oh, okay." And he said, "I hired you because you never asked me how much the job paid." I thought, wow. And that's when it clicked, you know, all the questions he was asking me. But what he didn't know was, before I went into that interview, I'd met with the human resources gal, and she told me what the job paid. So I was like, oh my God. Jeez, you know. So anyway, what I learned from that was that all things being equal, at least in that situation, and probably others, was that the humble, eager candidate gets the job. So in your interviews, be confident in yourself and in your abilities. Show motivation and ambition, but temper it with just a little bit of humility. It may just give you the edge that you need.